All right, so now that I'm recording, I'm just going to say again that what we're starting with here are four shapes. We have a cone, which is a triangle that has a rounded bottom. We have a square. We have a circle, close enough to a circle. Try your hardest to get it round. And then what is a cylinder? And to do the cylinder, I started with an oval, and then I drew two lines that went down, and I made the bottom rounded, same as with the cone. Okay, and what we're going to do here with the square is we're going to turn it into a cube. And to turn it into a cube, we're just going to go from the corners, three of the corners, draw a line back, and each of these lines has the same angle or the same, diagonal sort of direction to it. And then we can connect like that. Something like that. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. None of these have to be perfect today. The main idea here is that you will understand how to shade them to make them look more 3D and like they're popping off the page, because right now they're just shapes. They're just two-dimensional. They're very flat, and there's nothing 3D looking about them. Well, not nothing. These two look like they're three-dimensional a little bit, but when you add shading and value, you can make something appear to be more realistic, and it can give it an element of just popping off the page, if you will. So, you can use any pencil you want for the shading and for this process. I'm just using a regular number 2 pencil. That's your HB pencil. You can kind of see mine says HB right there, teeny tiny. If you want to use your B pencils, they will shade really nicely and they will blend really nicely, so they might not be a bad option for today. Sorry, I'm trying to find mine here in my kit. That's any pencil that has B after it. So 6B, for example, will be really, really smudgy and dark. It'll give us really nice shading. Sorry. I might use that one for one of these. I might also use my blending stump, and I think that if you haven't tried this yet, this would be a great chance to try using this thing. So here we go. To jump in, which one would you like to do first? Does anybody have a suggestion? No? Okay, I'm going to start with the cube, just because the cube has flat sides, and that one is going to be more like just the value scales that I had you practice last Friday as your assignment, because it's just flat and there's nothing rounded to it. All of these other forms have a rounded element to them. So when you're shading something with a flat surface, like maybe you were trying to draw a desk or the side of a drawer, because that's your assignment for your sketchbook assignment, is to draw a drawer, right? And so if you want to shade something that's flat, you can kind of pick wherever you'd like the light source to be coming from. And maybe if you're drawing something that you're actually looking at, you don't get to pick because it's already there and you can see what areas are lighter and what areas are darker. But when we're doing these drawings, this is all just kind of imaginary. So if I say there's going to be a sunshine right here in the middle, and so that's my light source. So when I'm looking at the cube, this area is going to be lightest. And when I'm looking at my my cone from the sun, this area will be lightest, if that makes sense. And I know you guys are muted right now, but if at any point you have questions or you want me to say that again or it doesn't make sense, just blurt out, let me know, and I'll go back to it. But when we're shading here, if this is going to be the lightest side or the lightest part of the cube, then that means this area that's furthest away, this is going to be darkest. And so what I can do with this cube right now is I can just take my pencil and shade in this whole side really, really dark. Because with a cube, or say it's a drawer or a building even, the side that the sun isn't reaching is just totally in shadow. It's fully darkened in, right? So that's what we're going to do with this cube. It's just going to be as dark as we can get it. And then if you're having trouble getting your pencil into the tiny little corners, and it's hard to see in here, you can't really see mine that well as far as the tiny little details, but you can see I didn't quite get into the corner here. This is a great opportunity to use your blending stump, because your blending stump works like a pencil and it allows you to pull the value and the shading into areas that maybe you can't reach or that are just a little harder to get to. It also will allow you to blend that shading together, and you could do this with your finger if you want, but some people don't like getting their fingers messy when they draw, and so this allows you to fill in like all the little white specks and spots without getting messy. I will say, and I have said this before, but I don't love using this tool. It's not my favorite thing. I don't mind getting my fingers messy. I would much rather just smudge my fingers on the paper. And for me, the sound of this rubbing on paper, it just makes my skin crawl a little bit. So you won't see me use this very much. It's a great tool and you should know how it can be used. But personally, as an artist, I just don't prefer to use it very often. It is a really great tool though. Max, do you have a question? Yes. I'm going to talk more about that next week, but yes, absolutely. So now we've got that whole side sort of blackened out. What we need to do is we need to shade gradually this side here. Now, and it's going to be darkest along this edge of the cube, and it's going to slowly get lighter and lighter until over here it's very light, just like on your value scales you made last week. Sorry, I just dropped my pencil. Okay. So this one should be easy because hopefully you tried something like this last week with your value scales. You're just going to color it in dark on this side and then slowly get lighter and lighter. And to do that, I'm just pressing a little bit lighter on the page. I'm not using a lot of pressure. I am back here because I'm trying to make it really dark, but then as I go across, it gets lighter and lighter, more gentle. Okay. And again, I can use this to kind of polish it up and make it look nicer, and this also allows the pencil marks to kind of go away so you can't really see the lines from the pencil. It just is a really nice way to softly blend things out. Now again, when I did this too, it's a little sloppy on the edges. You can see that I went over the edge here, so I could use an eraser and touch that up, or I could go along the outside and clean up my edges if I want to at any point. I'm not going to be too particular about this right now, but those are the sorts of things you'll want to do for your own drawings and your final projects and things like that in order to make your drawings look more finished and like you put in full effort. You'll go back and you'll clean up your edges, or you'll be more precise with them when you're drawing the first time around, because otherwise it looks a little bit scribbly as well. So we're going to do that same sort of thing along this edge, except the part that's farthest away from our light source, our sun, is actually here in this corner. So this corner is going to be darkest, and it's slowly going to get lighter and lighter until in this corner it's light just like it is here. So you can take a moment to do that. It's dark back there. It slowly gets lighter. Okay. Pardon me. Okay, so we're going to do that same sort of thing with these other objects as well. But what we need to keep in mind with these other objects is that they are rounded. They all have a curved sort of shape to them. And so in order to make them look curved, we need to also apply that curve to our drawing and to our shading. When I was working on the cube, I just used straight lines, back and forth, because the cube was flat and the sides of the cube were smooth and not at all rounded. So now when we move into, say, the circle or the sphere, we need to use curved lines for shading that mimic the shape of the cube or of the ball itself. You kind of see the lines that I'm putting in place here. I'm trying to draw them without going too dark, because when we go too dark in drawing, then it's hard to erase. But the shading that I'm going to put in place is going to be curved along with the curve of the ball. Does this make sense so far? Okay, so the darkest area is furthest away from our light source, so furthest away from the sun. So my darkest area on the sphere or on the ball will be along this back edge. And as I do this, you're going to see my pencil curve. And the movement that I'm making is curved and rounded. So it's very dark back there. And then I'm going to go, just like in my value scales, I'm going to go a step lighter. And then a step lighter. And slowly getting a lighter and lighter and lighter. And then when I step back, I'm going to take a moment to look at it from this point of view through this camera lens. I can tell that I need to be a little more gradual. You know, it is very dark back here, but then it just jumps to light, and it doesn't seem like a smooth transition. So I'm going to do more here. I can keep it very light in this area, but I have lots of room to work here where I can make these areas different tones of gray, and that's just part of the process with shading. It's getting something on the paper and then taking a step back and looking at it from a distance. Often that really helps us see what we've created and allows us to know where we need to change or adjust. And something else I could do is change up my pencil. So now I've switched to that 6B pencil because it's really easy to get a darker tone with a 6B pencil. I don't have to push as hard on the paper. I just don't have to try as hard to make it really dark. But still, every mark I make on the paper, I'm going rounded and curved. And I'm doing the same sort of movement, the rounded sort of curve with the blending stump. And I meant to check the time when I started shading in this sphere, but I didn't. I think I've been working on this sphere, this one shape, for almost 5 minutes though. So the thing that you need to keep in mind when you're trying to shade and you're trying to make things look three-dimensional as well is that it takes time, and you shouldn't try to rush it, and you shouldn't beat yourself up for it taking time. Okay. So now with all that in place, you know, if I kind of turn it on its side, I feel like that looks a little more three-dimensional than just a regular circle did. You know, it looks better than the sun. So do you guys have any questions or concerns yet as you're doing this on your own or moving forward?
Mine look nothing like yours.
Do you have a specific question about, or do you want to show it to me so I can see and maybe give you a couple pointers?
I don't have my correct pencils with me.
Okay. All right.
I need a better pencil.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that helps. Oh no, that looks. I can tell. Bring it a little closer to the screen. You see, you have a good start though. That's exactly what you need to do to start. You just have to do more and keep going. Cody? Oh yeah, that looks really good. Yeah, you can still see a lot of the lines from where your pencil touched the paper. So that's where your blending stump, sorry, this little guy that was in your bag, that might come in handy to make those lines sort of blend out and go away. What is that drawing for? That's not for this. That looks good. I like the colors. Uh-oh. I can't hear you, Cody. There we go. Yeah.
Have it on it.
Okay.
So you couldn't hear very good because it's quiet, yeah.
Is it better now? Kinda? Okay.
And I can't see the drawing.
Oh, oh shoot. You know what I should have had you guys do? I believe there's a way that you can make the picture of the drawing bigger if you click on it. Am I wrong? Can we try that? Because if I click on Talia, if I click on her face, then it makes her bigger?
There it is. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you got it. You clicked on
I'm
it.
sorry, I should have told you that sooner. Is anybody else having that problem? No? Okay. Alright, well, hopefully that helps moving forward. And remember, I will repost this video into our classroom too when we're done, so you can go back and rewatch it if you need to, or if you want to see me do it again. So now with these other two forms, we're just going to do the same sort of thing that we did here with the rounded motion and the rounded movement on both of these. We just have to pay attention to the fact that, on this one, the rounded motion we need to take needs to match the bottom edge of our cone. But the lightest area will be down here because that's closest to the sunshine. So it's going to be very, very dark up here at the top, and it's slowly going to get lighter as I go down that way. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot as I do this one. Something else you can keep in mind as you do this is if things get too dark, you just go on and erase them. You can always make them a little bit lighter if you feel like your shading has gotten too dark. So every time I take a moment to look at it, I notice areas that I need to fix or areas that I need to make a little bit better. So when you're drawing, anytime you're drawing, take a moment every now and then just to step back from it, or just, you know, sort of hold it away from you a little bit instead of looking at it so close. If you just sort of give yourself a little bit of distance, you can see the changes that you need to make, and then you see the big picture a little bit better. So it's all right. I feel better about it, but it's not my favorite. The one thing I can definitely tell I need to do is I need to take some time to clean up my edges because I just wasn't super careful as I was shading. And this is a good habit to get into, is to make things look a little more polished when you're finished with them. Oh, you can see here I went outside the lines. So I'm going to just polish it up a bit. Okay. And also I feel like it's still kind of dark in here at the corner, so what I can do is I can use my eraser and just lift off a little bit of that shading that's closest to my light source and lighten it up a little bit. Okay. Oops. There you go. So it's the same sort of thing with a cylinder, except it's just rounded in this way. We're matching, this time we'll be matching our rounded lines with the round part of the oval that we have for the top. Now, I've been going for quite a while here, and I didn't want to keep you guys too much longer. So I'm going to leave that one alone for now, and you could do it as work to practice and continue. But for now, I feel like I've kind of given you the same instruction 2 times as far as doing things curved and rounded. So I'm going to switch gears. Okay. Now I started to draw scissors here, and that is my scissors here that I have in my drawer in the desk that I'm sitting at. And I was trying to draw it just like this. And I guess it's kind of hard for you guys to see the same angle that I was looking at. But the idea is that this is an interesting form. It's not just a shape. Just a shape would be, you know, if this were a triangle, and if this were a circle, and this were just an oval and nothing else. But because it's 3-dimensional, I use the term form. So this is an interesting form, and when I shade a form, things can get a little bit different. Now we're going to apply these same concepts from here when we shade in anything else. Anything that is 3-dimensional has some sort of curve and shape to it that is either close to the light source or is further away from the light source. And those areas that are further away are going to be darkest, and the areas that are up close will be lightest. And then sometimes we have to deal with shadow that is casted. So even though something's close to a light source, it can be dark if something else overlaps it, or if there's a shadow being cast on it somehow. So those are the sorts of things we need to look for. And I want to show you the image here and then point out to you areas where things are lighter and things are darker. So, for example, with this scissors, if I were to shade my drawing and make it match the scissors, the handle is a much darker color in general than the blade. The blade is, it's metal, it's shiny and silver, and even right here on this end, the light is reflecting off it and it looks almost white, right? So when I were shading, I would make this part of my drawing very, very light. I might even leave it white. And this area I would shade in very, very gently so that it were a very light tone of gray. Because even though it's gray, it's still lighter than this purple color, right? And sometimes a tone of gray will look very, very dark and almost like it's black. But this tone of gray is a very light tone. It's lighter than the purple, right? So keep that in mind when you're shading as well. And I think that a lot of you guys did a pretty good job with that, with the shoe drawings that you had. When you did the full shading on your shoe drawing, you paid attention to those things, but I think it's important to point out and mention. Now, the other thing with this scissors is that even though the handle, I know that the handle is all the same color purple. It's all the same. But it doesn't all appear the same when I look at it. I can see that, I'm just going to point with my pencil, in here, down along this bottom edge, it looks darker than it does up here, because this is where the light's able to hit it. So this tone of purple looks a little bit lighter than this tone, and then as we get even further down, it's darkest along the very bottom edge. Can you guys see what I'm talking about? Okay, so those are the sorts of things you want to pay attention to when you're shading on your drawing. Now up here, it's got a very tiny thin sliver of light area here along the edge, but then it gets dark in here in the middle. And then as it flattens out, the light from my lamp hits it right here, and then it gets lighter again. So even though it's all purple, we have different shades of purple, and so we can translate that onto the paper by how hard we're pressing and how dark we make certain areas. Okay? And while it's color, I'll show you how to do this with color next week, but for today and for this current sketchbook assignment that's due on Monday, with you drawing in the drawer, the container, you want to try to do it with just black and white and just your pencils. So I'm going to try it for a minute here. I'm just going to work. You can watch me or you can work on your own. I'm going to try to wrap this whole video up and this meet in 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, okay? But if you do have questions, this is a great time for it. Otherwise, just watch or do your own for a minute, okay? That's a pretty good shape there, Cody. Nice. Sometimes it's important to go back and redefine your lines after you've been shading, because very often actually your original lines, when you do your shading and your blending, they kind of get smudged and they go away. If you're using an H pencil, that won't happen to you. So if I had used an H pencil to draw this outline, those would be nice crisp lines that wouldn't smudge and wouldn't go away. Hi. I need 3 minutes. Alright. Alright. So let's see. I'm going to take my own suggestion here, and I'm going to use an H pencil to go over that line. Now I have it in place and I like it. If I go over it with an H pencil, then I'm sort of solidifying what I've sketched. I don't tend to like using an H pencil to start because I make a lot of erasing and a lot of adjustments while I work, and you can't always do that with an H pencil. It just doesn't erase as well. So, there, now I have that in place. And if I go to shade, trying to make sure you can still see what I was talking about too. There we go. It's darkest along this bottom edge, and then it slowly gets lighter. And following the curve of the scissors just like I did. Follow the curve of the sphere. And the curve of the cone. If you use rounded motions with your pencils, it will help give your finished drawing a rounded sort of form. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was so close to being the edge of the frame there. And then just remember too that this whole thing is purple. It's all, it's not a white scissors, and it needs to be darker than the tone that I laid in here for the metal. So I'm making it a little bit darker without going super duper dark. And I'm using straight lines in here because this part of the scissors is flat, so I don't need it to look rounded here. Okay, so I only have a minute left. I am going to make sure to take these lines all the way up to the edge, and then I'll take the time to blend them out. Or again, I could use the blending stump. Now what I don't have here in the end, I don't have, remember we had said initially when I was showing you the scissors that along this very top edge it looked very bright because of the way the light hit it, and now it's not doing it just right. But there it is again. Cody, that looks great. Yeah, that looks really good. Good work. What I can do here is I'm just going to use my eraser, and I can use my eraser to pull out just a tiny bit and add a highlight to my drawing. So I can always lighten areas up or make them look like they have a little bit of a shine on them after I finish my shading, if I just use my eraser a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do here too. If I use my eraser, I could draw a little line and give it kind of a highlight, or like an area where it looks like light is shining on something. So, and that's how I would continue. But my 5 minutes is up. I want to let you guys get back to your day. I appreciate you coming and watching me do this, doing it with me. Talia, do you feel like it's working all right for you? Yeah. Okay. Can I see what you did? Oh, yeah. Those look great. Those look really nice. Nice smooth blending. Good. Okay. Well, do you guys have any questions for me before we go?
So,
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. It was a lot of talking, but there you got a full lesson today. All right. Well, you just let me know. Shoot me an email if you want to, or we can talk another time. If you have questions, I'm more than willing to help. Okay? And with your sketchbook assignment, it's due on Monday, but if you feel like you need pointers or you feel like something's not working for you, take a picture of it and shoot me an email, and then I can give you a little bit of feedback. Okay? All right. Great.
thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.